everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we will learn about cell organelles, the most fascinating part of biology. What are cell organelles? Cell organelles are specialized structures inside a cell that perform distinct functions, just like organs in our body. How organs in our body function and helps in the coordination of our body. The same way, inside the cell there are many organelles which help in the functioning of cell. You have learned that most cells have three basic parts. What are these three basic parts? The number one is cell membrane, the next is cytoplasm, then the next is nucleus. A selectively permeable membrane called plasma membrane, it is also called as cell membrane. A semi-fluid jelly-like substance called cytoplasm. In cytoplasm only the cell organelles are actually embedded. Then the third is a prominent nucleus. In addition to nucleus, the cytoplasm contains several subcellular components called organelles. So you can also write as subcellular component inside the cell are called as cell organelles, or in better detail you can actually write this definition. Okay, along with other substances present in it, most of which are only visible with an electron microscope. So by using electron microscope we can only observe this. Let's study. We are given with three different types of cell. The first one is a bacterial cell, the second one is a plant cell, and the third one is a animal cell. What do you actually observe differences on all these three? The first bacterial cell, you can see a free nucleoid with genetic materials. It has a cell wall. The same way plant cell too have a cell wall, but animal cell don't have a cell wall. Okay, the third thing is the genetic material is freely suspended here, whereas in both animal and plant cell the genetic material is covered by a envelope called as nuclear membrane. Just like how cell have cell membrane, the same way nucleus have a nuclear membrane. And all these cells have cell organelles. It only has cell ribosomes. Only cell organelles has ribosomes, whereas plant cell and animal cell have lysosome, ribosome, vacuole, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, Golgi body, chloroplast, and vacuole. Why bacteria cell does not possess all these cell organelles? We will learn about this in this video. So here you are given to record your observation. What are the different things in the structures and what are the difference in the cell organelles present in it? The conclusion given by the NCRT is a bacterial cell lacks a well defined nucleus and a membrane bound organelles. Organelles that are surrounded by their own membrane are actually called as membrane bound organelles. Such cells are called as prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic means pro denotes primitive, or you can also write as old. Primitive or old. Karyon means nucleus. Karyon actually means nucleus. So prokaryotic cell does not have a membrane. You can see that genetic material here is freely suspended. It is not covered by any nuclear membrane. It lacks membrane bound cell organelles. Also the cell membrane. I mean the nuclear membrane. Nucleus does not have a nuclear membrane. The genetic material, the DNA actually. Genetic material means the DNA is actually freely suspended. It is not protected by any layer. In prokaryotic cell, most cellular activity take place directly in cytoplasm. In contrast, animal and the plant cell have well defined nucleus and several membrane bound organelles. So prokaryotic cell, we don't have membrane bound organelles also. The first thing is the prokaryotic cell does not have nuclear membrane. The second thing is it also don't have membrane bound organelles, whereas plant cell and animal cell, they both have nuclear membrane plus membrane bound organelles. Such cells which have a well defined nucleus are called as eukaryotic. U means true and karyotic means nucleus. Okay, we are given with a table to get a in-depth knowledge and revise it quickly. Let's do this. Cell membrane, all these cells, cell membrane is actually universal. You can write here as universal feature. It is present in all the cells. Universal. Okay, the next is cell wall. Cell wall is present in bacterial cell, plant cell, but it is not present in animal cell. Why it is not present in animal cell? Because plant needs to be rigid frame to withstand wind and rain and all these climatic changes, whereas animal, they move from one place to one place, so they don't need such frame support, right? The next is cytoplasm. Same, universal. It is present in all these cells, bacterial, plant, and animal. Then is well defined nucleus, genetic material enclosed by a membrane. You have given with the explanation also. What do you mean by well defined nucleus? That means genetic material. If this is genetic material, that is DNA actually. It is actually surrounded by a membrane, that is nuclear membrane. So plant cell do have this, animal cell do have this, but bacterial cell are not. You can write as bacterial cell are prokaryotic and plant and animal are actually eukaryotic. Primitive my nucleus, that is nucleoid genetic material without any membrane. Bacterial cell, plant cell, no, they have a membrane. Membrane bound organelles, definitely bacterial cell will not have this, plant cell and animal cell will have. So this is what the two things we have to actually give importance. The one is nucleus will have a nuclear membrane in eukaryotic. Additionally, it will have a membrane bound organelles. We will study about this. Membrane bound means those organelles will have a membrane, but in eukaryotic it neither has a nuclear membrane nor membrane bound organelles. Okay, now comparison between eukaryotic and prokaryotic. First, primitive nucleus, present, absent here. Primitive nucleus means without nuclear membrane. Diameter of a typical cell, you can actually revise it, keep it in mind. The next is number of cells in an organism, usually unicellular, bacteria unicellular. Eukaryotic can be unicellular or multicellular. Membrane bound organelles absent. Here they are present. Membrane bound nucleus absent, presence. This is what the main difference. It is usually asked as 3 mark. Usually asked in 3 mark, and you have to actually make a tabular column like this and you have to explain the difference. You are given to read this. Do you know? Extra information kind of. In eukaryotic cell, a network of oof, yeah. In eukaryotic cells, a network of fine fiber forms cytoskeleton, which provides structural support, maintains cell shape, and enables cell movement and internal transport. So you are given with an extra information about the cytoskeleton. It helps in providing structural support, maintains the shape of cell, and enables cell movement and internal transport. It is only visible under an electron microscope as a separate entity. Cytoplasm may also store starch in plants, or crystals of calcium oxalate or silica in some plant cells. These are known as cell inclusions. You are given with the storage of plant cells. About the cell inclusions, they store two things. One is starch, then next is calcium oxalate. Why do eukaryotic cells need organelles? Why they have only mentioned eukaryotic? Why not prokaryotic? Because we have learned that prokaryotic does not have cell organelles. Only one cell organelle it has is ribosomes. Because ribosomes don't have membrane bound. We have two types of ribosomes. We will learn in depth about it. In those two types of ribosomes, one is 70S, the another is 80S. The 70S does not have membrane in around the ribosomes, so it is present in prokaryotic. Whereas in eukaryotic, we have 80S type of ribosomes. We will learn about it. Eukaryotic cells carry out various life process. What are life process actually? Life process are those process which are necessary for our functioning, day to day functioning, like respiration, transportation, circulation, excretion, all this in different cell organelles. Okay, in eukaryotic cell, various life processes are actually taken place in different cell organelles independently at the same time. Independently is very important. It one's function does not affect the other's function. Cell organelles help in building new materials, removing waste, providing energy to the cell. They work together to perform all the function of a cell. In other words, a cell like a cell is like a living, tiny living factory with each of its part doing a specific job. Very nice example actually NCERT has given this time. Cell is like a tiny living factory. Inside a factory, different people do different things. Here there is one machine, here there is one machine, but they all do one thing. Totally are they are coordinating for a factory. So they have given the function of cell organelles here. Functions. You can actually write it as function of cell organelles in 2 marker questions. Cell organelles help in building new materials, removing waste, and providing energy. Okay. The first important basic structure we have to actually give importance is nucleus, the house of coded instructions. Actually, nucleus is also called as the brain of the cell. Why nucleus is actually called the brain of the cell? Because it is actually doing all the function. It is monitoring. You can also write it as it is the class monitor. You can write it as it is the class monitor of a class. How class monitor gives instruction. Here you can have class monitor because it actually controls the whole cell. Okay, so nucleus is given as the brain of the cell. It controls all the activities, all the metabolic activities happening in a cell. You can also write as nucleus is the brain of the cell. Nucleus is the brain of the cell. Okay, nucleus has a double layered covering called as nuclear membrane. As I told you, nucleus have a membrane, but it is double layered. It is double covered, or you can say it as double layered. You have two layers here, right? A structure of nucleus is given. This is what the diagram, which has pores that allow the transfer of materials between nucleus and cytoplasm. Nucleus is the dense structure inside the nucleus. Okay, is the dense round body in the nucleus where synthesis of ribosomal subunits take place. Here they have given the function of nucleolus. Okay, the nucleolus is a dense body in the nucleus where synthesis of ribosomal subunits take place. These subunits then exit the nucleus to cytoplasm, where one large and one small subunits assemble to form ribosomes. One large and one small units are actually getting assembled to form ribosomes. See, as I told you, there are two types of ribosomes. Let me give you short explanation kind. There are two kind of ribosomes. One is 70S, another is 80S. So 70S ribosomes is actually present in prokaryotic cell because this ribosome does not have membrane. 80S is actually present in eukaryotic cell because it has membrane. So this 80S can be divided into two. These 80S ribosomes are formed by two things. They are actually formed by two things. One is 1 minute. They are formed by two subunits. One is large subunits, large subunits. Another one is small subunits. So large plus small subunits actually is forming the ribosomes. So it is actually that 60 large and 20 small. Okay, 60 large and 20 small. So this is what they are saying, that these subunits actually they are going out and they are forming ribosomes. One large and one subunit, one small subunits. Eukaryotic have 80, that's why I am telling you that 60 are large and 20 are small subunits. Okay. The nucleus contains chromosomes which are visible as a rod shaped structure only when the cell is about to divide. So this nucleus is actually having a chromosome. It is a rod shaped, you can see it is a rod shaped like structure. It is only visible, very important, it is only visible when the cell is about to divide. So have a cell. When the cell is actually to divide into two more cells, then that time only inside the nucleus these rod like structure, that is chromosomes, are visible. Then you can also ask us, when the cell is not about to divide, then where are these chromosomes? These chromosomes are actually, when the cell is not going to divide, they are actually in the form of chromatin. Chromatin is a thread like structure like this way. So it is present inside the nucleus, okay, a thread like structure like this. You can see this, okay. So when the cell is about to divide, they get condensed, they come into the form of a chromosome. They are actually in the thread form. When the cell is about to divide, that time they get condensed, or you can say that they get assembled into this shape. Okay, that is chromosomes. Chromosomes contain information for inheritance of character from parents to the next generation in the form of DNA. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. Usually it is asked in 1 mark, what is the full form of DNA? 1 mark. So if you open this the chromosome, you will get a thread like big structure DNA. It is about 2.3 meter long. Okay. So these chromosomes actually contain the information for the inheritance. You are getting characters from your parents, like your eye color. Okay, your mom and dad both have black, so you get the same color, black color for your eye. Your hair, if your hair are curly, you get it from, you may be from your mom or your dad. Okay, so these chromosomes are actually containing the inheritance character from your parents in the form of DNA. DNA is actually genetic material, containing the genetic material, the genes. Okay, genes. Chromosomes are composed of DNA and specific proteins. DNA molecules contain genetic information. The functional segment of DNA are called as genes. The functional segments, like if you see this structure, this is DNA, right? This is DNA. You observe it carefully, how it is like this, right? How it is in this way. Okay. In this way, we are having inside these particular, this I have given with pink color, right? This particular segment is called as gene. This is whole DNA. Okay, DNA, in which this particular segment is this particular segment, this pink color I have given up. This particular segment is called as gene. Okay. The functional segment of DNA is called as genes. In non-dividing cell, this DNA is present as a part of chromatin material. I have already given this chromatin. So if the cell is not going to divide, it will be in this form. This form, that is chromatin. This form is actually called as chromatin. If it is going to divide, it will take in this shape, that is chromosome. It will get condensed in simpler way you can write it as, it get arranged into chromosome contains DNA have a small segment called as gene. Okay. Chromatin material is visible as an entailed mass of thread like structures. As I told you, it is looking like a thread like structure like this. Whenever the cell is about to divide, the chromatin material get organized is also okay. You can also write as organized into chromosomes. So this thread like structure is actually getting organized into chromosomes. Okay. Now prokaryotic cells, we are gonna do this alone. In next video we will learn about ribosomes, the protein factories. Okay. Prokaryotic cells do not have a well-defined nucleus. Their DNA is present in a single circular molecule associated with specific proteins, and the region containing this genetic material is actually called as nucleoid. They don't have nucleus, right? The genetic material, both, whether it is prokaryotic or eukaryotic, both have genetic materials, but the difference is the way they are actually covered. Prokaryotic, they are not covered, they are just freely suspended, they are just in a single circular molecule with some proteins. So this region is actually, this whole region, it is not actually covered. I'm just trying to show. This whole region is actually called as nucleoid. Okay, this whole region is actually denoted as nucleoid. Let's see this threads of curiosity. Some cells are specialized to perform specific function. For example, the mature red blood cells, that is RBC, not RCB, RBC. In humans, do not have a nucleus. So they are trying to say with a special quote here. Starting with a special quote here. Some cells are actually specialized to perform specific functions. So if their structure differs from one another, that means they are actually doing some different things. That's why their structure is actually different. We have seen that cell contain nucleus, but here is one exception. Red blood cell does not have nucleus. The absence of nucleus provide more space for hemoglobin. The main function of RBC, that is red blood cell, is to carry oxygen. The oxygen is carried by a respiratory pigment called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin actually attracts oxygen. So hemoglobin attracts oxygen, and this RBC is taking the oxygen throughout the body. So to have more space, to fill more oxygen, it does not have nucleus, allowing it to transfer a larger amount of oxygen. So they are trying to say that the nucleus is not present. Why it is not present? The absence of nucleus provide more space. It is providing more space so that more amount of oxygen can be traveled or can be transported. Since they lack a nucleus, they cannot repair or divide themselves. That is very important point. Divide themselves. Nucleus only has the ability to divide. If a cell does not have a nucleus, if cell it is not having a nucleus, then it cannot divide also. It cannot divide also. Since they lack nucleus, they cannot repair or divide themselves. As a result, their lifespan is the time which they are expected to live. A lifespan is life journey or lifetime is short. They don't have nucleus. They cannot repair. So they survive for a very less day. Approx 120 days only they can only survive. Okay. The next topic, the next cell organelle is ribosomes. We will discuss about this in the next class. Till then, stay connected. Have a nice day. Thank you.